Okay, good morning, everyone. If you're just getting in, be sure to do the attendance quiz. Looks like there's a handful of people that aren't quite here yet. We've got 77 people in attendance of a possible 86. Okay. So last week, we handed out the final exam study guide. You should probably have that near and dear to your heart. I'm going to tell you how many questions there are in each category. So category 1 is very high frequency omnidirectional range. You're going to see on the final exam 10 questions associated to that topic. Okay, so you might want to write that down, that there's going to be 10 questions on DOR. Okay, moving to part 2, instrument landing system. You're going to see 15 questions on the instrument landing system. For part 3, transponder, we're going to put 11 questions on transponder. And DME, be also 11 questions on DME. And TCAS, there's going to be 7 questions on TCAS. GPS, 3 questions on GPS. RADALT, 7 questions on radar altimeter. Autopilot and automatic flight control systems, that also includes flight management systems, flight directors. There's going to be 16 questions on that topic. Weather radar, there's going to be 5 questions on weather radar, which also includes lightning detection, so storm scope, strike finder, and 10 ground proximity warning system. There's going to be 2 questions on that. And cockpit voice recorders, 4 questions. Flight data recorders, 2 questions. Electronic flight instrumentation systems, or EFIS, 3 questions on those. And 1 for good luck on ECAM and ECAS. Then ACARS, a question on ACARS as well. AirCars, the ACARS question covers AirCom. It's the same system. As one one's European. Selective calling, CellCal. We'll add a question on CellCal. And a question on satellite communication right there. So the grand tally, if you add everything up, you're looking at 100 multiple guess questions for your learning enjoyment. Okay, so just to recap, let's go back to the beginning for those people just coming in the door. DOR, 10 questions. ILS, 15 questions. Transponder, 11 questions. DME, also 11 questions. TCAS, 7 questions. GPS, 3 questions. Radar altimeter, 7 questions. Autopilot, which also includes automatic flight control systems, flight directors, and flight management, 16 questions. Weather radar, including lightning detection, 5 questions. Ground proximity warning systems, 2 questions. Cockpit voice recorders, 4 questions. Flight data recorders, 2 questions. EFIS, electronic flight instrumentation systems, 3 questions. ECAS and ECAM, 1 question. ACARS, which also covers AirCom, 1 question. Selective calling, SALCAL, 1 question. Satellite communication, SATCOM, 1 question. 100 questions total. Okay. File. Okay, that's great. Okay, moving right along. I want to see. Okay, so let's get started. Do a little bit of a review here. A little bit of a review. Okay. So, Section 1. Anyone from Section 1. You should be able to tell me in this radio stack what the top unit is. Let's start with Alexander in Section 1. What is that? Andre? Oh, if you don't answer, by the way, I'm docking you, Mark. When I call your name. So, Andre Miron.
Darren.
Yeah.
Alex just sent me a message. He said 1 second, whatever that means.
Okay. I would suggest for the rest of you that are hearing me, you better be attentive right now. I'm not doing this review for the good of my health. I already know this stuff. So pay attention.
Darren, can you hear me now?
I can. What's that top unit?
That's the, oh man, why can't I think?
I'm putting the pressure.
The audio controller that defines where audio goes and what you're listening to, is it not?
It dispatches audio, right? So
Yeah.
one would say that's probably the audio controller / intercom system. Now I'm looking at that thing, and anybody can jump in. What radio has been selected for the purpose of transmit?
COM2.
COM2 for the purpose of transmit. What's been selected for the purpose of receive?
COM1.
And has it been for the purpose of receive through the headsets or through the speakers?
The speakers, it looks like.
Speakers, yeah, switches up. So COM1 is receive. Am I going to miss if I transmit on COM2, because you told me I'm selected to COM2 for the purpose of transmit? Am I going to miss the response to my hail, let's say, to air traffic control or another aircraft?
No.
No, it's because it's selected to COM2 for the purpose of transmit, even though the receive switch is in the middle, we'll get the audio. It'll default on. What's that fancy colored light show there below the transmit selector switch? What's that all about?
It's your marker lights?
Yeah, some marker beacon lights. What light intensity has it been set to?
High.
Low.
Oh, yeah, I think that switch is in the middle. So the one on the right-hand side over here.
I thought it was up.
Yeah, no, that's good. It's in. I think it's on low. What do we wanted initially on approach?
High, so you don't miss it.
Yeah, so we don't miss the event. So we want that on high sensitivity, so we don't miss the event. Okay, so that pretty much covers off the audio control. Some people said, "Hey, what's this thing?" Oh, that's to adjust for ambient lighting. As it gets darker, everybody knows in the cockpit, the lighting should intensify or detensify as it gets brighter.
Detensify as it gets darker.
Detensify as it gets darker. That's right. And as it gets lighter, it should intensify. Good.
Yep.
Okay. So section 1 did a good job there. Section 2. And a bunch of people in section 2. We got a bunch of Bens. We got an Ashley. Okay. Next unit down. Anybody from section 2? What is it? Where's Zane?
Hey Darren, I'm here. I'm just trying to get thinking. That's not. Is it your audio selector? No.
No. I think it's written on those things. It's embossed.
I'm trying to see. It's kind of fuzzy. I can't really see it.
Okay, who can help them out? Where's all these bends? We got a Ben G, a Ben H, a Ben. Yeah.
Your channel selector?
Now, what's the radio? Like, what's the radio called? The whole thing. And it's by the way, it's 2 radios. It's like the same one I have in my Fairy kit.
Column nav unit.
There you go. Somebody's thinking. That was Ben. Com. Hey, that says com. Now, just looking at the frequencies, it's a dead giveaway for me. Okay. The com has a frequency 122 in the use window, and in the standby window 118.9. Those pretty much look like VHF AM com frequencies. Now, I'll play your silly game. 122.00. Is it really 2 places of decimals? Or is it 3?
It's 3.
And if so, what's the third place of decimal on the 122.00? What's the third place?
0.
Yeah.
Another 0.
What about the standby frequency of 118.90? What's the third place of decimal?
0.
Yep, 0. It's also a 0. Now, looking at the nav part, the nav window, dead giveaway for me again. I'm looking at the frequencies 111.30 in the use window, 114.20 in the standby window. Everybody knows that nav actually starts, we're talking nav, we're talking VOR and localizer. There's 200 of those frequencies. It starts at 108.00 and extends through to 117.95. So those are definitely nav frequencies. Are they 2 places of decimal as shown? Remember, there's 200 channels. There's not 700 and there's not 760. Who's got that answer for me? David Span.
Hello.
What do you think? Is it 2 places of decimal or 3 places of decimal for the nav side of the house? You get a 50-50 chance of getting this correct.
2 places?
2 places. It is 2 places. That's right. So 2 places of decimal. And I'm looking at 111.30. Is that a VOR frequency or is that a localizer frequency? Anybody in section 2? Including Roderick? What do you think? I know the dead giveaway for me is the 3 in that number.
VOR.
It's a VOR. You had a 50-50 chance, and guess what?
I got it.
No, you didn't. Okay? You got a 50-50 chance. Okay, so try it again. What's the 3 signify? It's an odd number.
Localizer.
That's a localizer. Now you got it. Now you're cooking with diesel, Vin. Okay. How about that that standby frequency of 114.20? What do you think that is? VOR or localizer? 50-50 chance, Roderick.
VOR.
That's a VOR. And not because it has an even number two there after the decimal, even though that helps. Everything after 112, all the way up to the last frequency, 117.95, regardless of whether it's odd or even after the decimal point, all become VOR. Hence, there's more VOR frequencies, 160, than there are localizer frequencies, 40, because of it. Good. So, that's good. Section 3, look at the next unit down. What is that unit? Andrew King and the gang.
Are you talking about the second comm nav unit or the one
There you
below
go. There, now you're talking. The second comm nav unit. Why do I got two of them?
that? The more the merrier.
The more the merrier. Redundancy. Redundancy. That's right. Now, let's have a look at that first frequency in the use window on the VHF AM comm side of the house. 118.10. What's the third place of decimal? Given it's 25 kilohertz channel spacing. What do you think?
0.
Yeah, 0. And 121.80. What do you think? What's the third place? Let's go with Gabriel Langford.
It's also a 0.
You got it, Pontiac. Is that, by the way, is that 121 frequency the official aviation emergency frequency? Is it 121.8?
No.
Yes or no? Maverick.
No, I don't think so.
So what is the official VHF emergency frequency?
Wasn't it like 2700? Oh no,
Good
that
guess.
was pretty
It's 121.5.
121.5. That's ringing a bell. What device puts that out?
ELT.
You got it. ELT. So just the ELT, or can I talk on that frequency too if I really had to? And would that be my first choice of frequencies in the event of an emergency? What do you think? Michael McCluskey Howes. Guy with 16 names. Oh.
Can you repeat that, Darren?
Yeah. So 121.5, we're talking about the official emergency frequency. And if I start talking on that frequency, would that, or I'm not going to talk on that frequency. Is that going to be the first frequency of choice in the event of a mayday or an urgency situation? Is that going to be the first frequency you think of to go to? What did we learn when we talked about the restricted radio operator certificate aeronautical?
It wouldn't be the first place, no?
There you go. See, now you're reading my mail. What would be the first place we go?
See, that I can't answer your question. I forget that one.
Oh, somebody help them out.
It's whatever you're actively talking on, right?
Yeah, so what you were already talking on, there's a good possibility somebody still got their ears on out there. And maybe we should try that frequency first before we defunk over to 121.5 and do that. So that might be the second frequency we think about. Good. So that's good for the comm side of the house. Looking at the nav side of the house, both of those frequencies in the use and the standby window are both VOR. How do I know they're both VOR? Well, because everything after 112, regardless of whether the first place of decimal is odd or even, automatically becomes VOR. Okay, when it comes to a comm nav, which one of those radios, or do they both, produce a Morse code identifier? Joel Hood. Well, that's not looking good. Let's go with Ben Key. Well, Ryan Sodden. Boy, there's a lot of people absent today. Man, that attendance is going to look awful. Okay, who wants to help him out? Andrew King, you're back
They
up.
both would.
They both would. And I'm thinking, I don't know, what frequency in the comm side would have a Morse code coming in? No, I'm thinking the nav side, whether you're on VOR, everybody knows that ever popular VOR Morse code. If we were tuned into, let's say, North Bay VOR 115.4, deet, 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 deet. Yeah, that would be YYB. Or if I channeled over to a localizer frequency, I'd get, I think a Morse code starting with a prefix what? If I channeled over to a localizer frequency, what would the prefix be? It wouldn't be Y anymore.
I.
Yeah, sure, it'd be I. Signify the instrument landing system. Good. Doesn't matter anyways, because I'm looking at that second ComNav unit and both the volume switches are down. You're never going to hear anything anyways. Not to mention that the nav selector switch on the top unit, nav 1 and nav 2, is off. So even if there was a Morse code coming in, we wouldn't be hearing it right now. Good. Section 4. Section 4, you get the next radio down. What do you think that is? Looking at it.
DME.
That one there? No, not DME. Where's Bradley Rowe when you need him?
ADF.
That's an ADF. And I'll play your silly game, Mr. Rowe. Is that an ADF mode right now? Is it ADFing? Like if there was an indicator, would the indicator actually be pointing at anything? Looking at what's displayed there?
I'm gonna say no because there's not the key light on.
And it's no, because we're in antenna mode, and everybody knows when you're in antenna mode, that's listening mode. You're listening for a Morse code identifier of an ADF station, non-directional beacon, let's say. And where is the needle on the indicator when you're in antenna mode? Same place it is on your wipers in your car when they're not working. What do we call that position?
On the left wing or right wing in park.
Yeah, the park position on the right-hand wing. Good. It looks like in the standby window of the ADF receiver, we're seeing the flight timer instead of a standby frequency or the elapsed timer. Good. And last but not least, in the radio stack, good old section 5. And we'll say, start with Alexander. Este, what is that thing? Okay, who's Bryce? Where's Bryce Cameron? Is he around?
Yeah, I'm here.
Yeah, what do you got there? What's that last unit?
Oh, I'm here with Alex. I'm not exactly sure.
You're what? You're at church. That's cool. No. Charlie, clearly, help him out. Let's see. Let's let them see clearly now. The rain is falling.
The transponder.
That's transponder. How'd you know it was transponder?
Lucky guess.
Lucky guess. No, it's more than a lucky guess. Hey, what mode is it in? Mode is that transponder in? Look at the mode selector.
Altitude mode.
Altitude mode. So in altitude mode, what does it deliver to air traffic control? Just altitude? Jack comms. What do we think? I'm pretty sure in altitude mode, they call that AC mode. So in altitude mode, it gives two pieces of information. It gives what normally comes when the switch is in the on position. By the way, what does get sent when the switch is in the on position? If it's not altitude. Wyatt Hill. What gets sent when your transponder is in the on position?
I'm not sure.
Uh-oh, who's sure? Jonathan Van Dyke.
Would that be like the Morse code or the just the aircraft? I don't know, the signal, I guess.
No. Evan Hart, what gets sent when a transponder is in its on position on the mode selector switch?
The aircraft info.
Okay, what info?
Registration marks and like direction.
Nope. What are those knobs for, you guys? Okay. First one says 1, the second one says 2, the third one is a 0, and the fourth one is a 0. What are those for? It's a request. So the on position is a request for code switch setting. And the code switch right now is a 1, a 2, a 0, and a 0. And by the way, is that a real decimal 1, a real decimal 2, a real decimal 0, and a real decimal 0? Or is that some other language?
It's octal.
It's octal. It's an octal language. Okay, so 1200 gets sent when the transponder's mode selector switch is in the on position. And it's being sent in a binary code for the language of octal. And we all know that the highest number in octal, in that language, isn't like decimal. It's not a 9. What's the highest number in the octal numbering system?
8. 7.
7. There's 8 characters, but the highest character is a 7. So 0 through 7 is 8 characters. And everybody knows how many bits does it take to make a 7 in binary?
3.
3. So what's being sent right now, that 1 is 001. That 2 is 010. That 0 right there is 000. So is that one, 000. Good. When the mode switch is put to the altitude position, even though we want to say that's sending altitude, it's sending both. So upon request or upon interrogation, the transponder is going to send both the code switch identification in octal and the altitude information as well in a different language. We'll get to that. What's this? Okay, how do you know when your transponder is actually sending a response to a ground-based interrogation from air traffic control? How do you know on that unit that you're answering?
The light flashes.
Yeah, so the reply light flashes. Okay, so what's this other goofy thing? It looks like a push button and a green light when you push it. It says ID. When am I supposed to push that button?
When they tell you to squawk ident.
Yeah, when they specifically the ident, when they tell you to squawk a number and then hit the ident, that ident will illuminate for a minimum of how many seconds? 20. And it'll make a proof positive ID on their plan position indicator scope that you are who they think you are anyways. So that's good. Nothing more there. Switch to the next one. So what are we looking at here? Section 6. Andrew Ewing. What is this thing? What is this setup? Nice presentation too. Look, it's got the first frequency of whatever this thing is and the last frequency of whatever it is. Okay. Andrew Hannes. What is that? No? Dean Cove.
Nav receiver.
That's the which? Nav receiver? Yeah, I like it. Nav receiver. Good. Yeah, it's definitely a nav receiver. There's the word nav. First frequency 10800. Last frequency 117.95, 50 kilohertz channel spacing, 200 channels, 160 VOR, 40 ILS localizer, and life is good. So when it comes to VOR, you should know that VOR stands for, well, the V stands for the frequency range on which it operates. So it's very high frequency. The O is omnidirectional. The R is range. And VOR came out, well, made available to the civilian market in at the end of the Second World War, 1945. And why did it quickly become the preferred navigational source over ADF? What was the problem with ADF? Because ADF wasn't necessarily that bad.
It was very susceptible to noise.
You got it. So it's very susceptible to noise because it was operating, ADF was operating not in the VHF band, but down in the low and medium frequency bands. And we all know as you go down in frequency, you're moving closer towards noise. So this newer system that works almost the same got rid of the noise by moving up a couple of bands. On that indicator on the top, the windows, and they don't all have that many windows. Some indicators only have a single window, but this appears to have 3 windows. The one that we see a little red coloring in there, that's the flag, nav flag. So right now, even if it did show me an indication, I couldn't use that information because the nav flag is in view. So the nav flag's usually red, or it could be a barber pole, sort of a hatched colored red and white marking. But if I see it, I shouldn't use it, meaning I could be out of station range. The system itself, either the receiver, the indicator is broken, or I'm over the cone of silence right over the station. If that was gone, I would be having a 2 indication. The indication would be I'm flying towards the station. That could easily be an arrow shooting out the bottom, showing that I'm flying away from the station. The choice is yours when you're navigating with VOR. You turn the omni-bearing selector knob and you put a road under the lubber line. And that road is, in your opinion, either a road towards a station or away from a station. So that's the sort of the advantage of VOR, is that you can select roads towards the station or away from the station. And when it comes to thereafter, when it comes to needle movement, what's the deal with the term fly the needle? What does that mean? If the needle goes left, what am I supposed to do?
Go left.
Yeah, if it goes left, you go left. If it goes right, you go right. And as you do that, the needle should come back into center, back onto the road that you selected under the lubber line. Okay. Each dot, when we're playing with the road, each dot, and there's 5 dots either side of center, each dot represents how many degrees off the selected road.
2.
Yeah, 2 degrees. So the total, when they refer to course width, so the total viewing window from extreme dot on the left over to the extreme dot on the right, it's a 20-degree course width, VOR course width. It's plus or minus 10 degrees either side of the road, and the road you select, and you select whether you want to fly towards a station or away from a station. Where are stations located? Oh, same as ADF. Stations are located en route. Okay, so all along the path, and they're located at airports, okay, because eventually you want to end up somewhere. Okay, how many different roads are there? How many different roads can you choose to fly either towards or away from a station on?
Is it 160?
No, 1 for every degree in a circle. How many degrees in a circle?
360.
360 degrees. So there's 1 for every degree in a circle. So let's see. Okay, that's good. So 360, but we use a term. We say we can select a radial, and when it comes to radials, because that's a VOR term, radials are magnetic tracks, or the right wording is they're omni-bearing lines that extend from the station to the aircraft. Okay, so we fly on radials, and those radials extend from the station to your aircraft. And there's 360 of them emanating outwards from VOR stations that we can pick to fly either towards the station or away from the station on. When it comes to an antenna for this system, there's two types of antennas, one being better than the other. One of them is called a balanced loop style antenna, and the other one is called a V-style antenna. If I had my choice, in every case, I'd buy a balanced loop style antenna. And you're saying, what does that look like? Well, that's the one that's either a high-speed blade on either side of the vertical stabilizer, nice and high up, or a towel bar. Those perform the best, as opposed to a V-style, which you still might see up on the top of the vertical stabilizer as a sort of a rabbit ear on either side, or as part of a combination antenna, ComNav antenna on the roof of the aircraft, sort of center line. Good. Okay, I'll take care of what I wanted to ask about that. Right now, the active frequency is the first frequency 108. The standby frequency is 117.95. The volume is about halfway up. If I wanted to hear anything, I'd have to select nav through the audio controller. And if I wanted to hear the Morse code, I'd probably have to say it says pull for ident. I'd have to pull and break the swelp so I could hear it. Okay, looking at what we have there, we have three symbols. Which one of those is actually a VOR symbol? Is it the top one, the middle one, or the bottom one?
Top one.
Top one is a VOR symbol. Okay, so what's that make the middle one? And that's what North Bay actually has. Middle one.
Or DME, isn't it?
Yeah, so it's a VOR station co-located with a DME station. It's kind of like a Wendy's, Tim Hortons co-located to each other, or Harvey Swiss Chalet. And what's the last scary looking one?
VORTAC.
Yeah, VORTAC. What's the TAC mean? No, what VOR is.
Tactical.
TACAN, Tactical Air Navigations, military gave us all this stuff. So a VORTAC is a civilian VOR station co-located with a military TACAN station. It doesn't matter. Any of those three stations, whether it's just VOR, VOR DME, or VORTAC, or even TACAN, you can pick up usable VOR signals from any of those stations. How are VOR stations identified? I think I talked about this. North Bay is, it's YYB, emanating from the station on 1020 hertz audio. And the range of this system is, now you got to get nice and high. Okay, the higher you go, because it is a VHF system, the better off you're going to be. But if you're nice and high, let's say 30,000 feet, you're going to get about 200 nautical miles out of this system. So you can track towards or away from, an en route VOR station or towards an airport. Okay. Good. Good enough for that. So what kind of station is that when we just considered the last ones? Is that a VOR, or is that a VOR DME, or is that a VORTAC?
VORTAC.
That's VORTAC. The top hat gives it away. Okay, it's VORTAC. Ooh, okay. I'm looking at this. And what is this a depiction of? Is this VOR or is this something else? What do you think?
ILS.
I think it's the ILS. I think what that's trying to show me is the three parts of the instrument landing system. What are the three parts of an instrument landing system, starting in order of acquisition? And when I say acquisition, what do you pick up first when you're flying towards the instrument landing system?
Localizer.
Localizer. So as far as 25 nautical miles out, okay, you can start to pick up the localizer, which provides lateral guidance. Lateral guidance to what?
The station.
Okay, but what's it trying to do for you? So a needle that's moving
Center
left
line
to
of
right
the
center,
runway.
what's it trying to do? Yeah, it's trying to line you up with the center line of the runway. So as far as 25 nautical miles out, right, you can start to, with your center and your needle, your vertical needle, try to center it up. Remember, your vertical needle, it's the same nav indicator you've been using for VOR, but it's no longer the same game because you've changed the frequency on your nav receiver. The VOR frequency got you to North Bay, but the ILS frequency is going to land you. Okay, so it's the same nav receiver, let's say, same indicator, but the needle that's vertical now has nothing to do with a road and you selecting a road, and everything to do with the center line of the runway and getting you on it and keeping you on it. The rule of thumb still applies on a front course approach. It's fly the needle. If it goes left, you go left. If it goes right, you go right. But when it comes to that front course approach, each dot now is no longer 2 degrees per dot. Is it tighter than 2 degrees or looser than 2 degrees per dot when it's trying to line you up with the center line? What do we think?
Tighter.
Tighter. How tight? So we went from 2 to what for each dot?
Isn't it like 0.5?
Yeah, 0.5. So it's 0.5 degrees per dot, still 10 dots. So they say the course width, so the width right across the front here is 5 degrees. And that's right. If you think about, each dot being worth 0.5 of a degree, it's really plus or minus 2.5 degrees either side of the center line of the runway. Okay. And what's really doing that for you out 25 nautical miles when you start this game is the yellow and the blue energy, very directional in nature from the localizer transmitting shack. Your antenna system is seeing either equal amounts of yellow energy, 90 hertz signal, or equal amounts of blue, 150. And if it sees them both equally, let's say 20% each, the needle will center. If it sees more yellow, the needle will move one way. If it sees more blue, the needle will move the other way. The game is try and put your aircraft in the center, and equal amounts of energy will center the needle. Okay, so that's in order of acquisition. We start with localizer, and as we're flying in, we're going to intercept glide slope. And what's the preferred glide slope angle?
2.5 degrees.
2.5 degrees. So I'm looking at, so this is not only a picture of the localizer across the front face, but vertically, up and down, it's also a picture of the glide slope, which the glide slope would be right in the middle here. And each dot on the glide slope on that part of the indicator is worth how much? Oh, it's about 0.14 of a degree. 0.14 of a degree. So there's 5 dots going up. So it's about 0.7 degrees above the glide path and about 0.7 degrees below the glide path. The total width of the glide slope or glide path is 1.4 degrees, plus or minus 0.7 up, plus or minus 0.7 down of the preferred 2.5 degree angle. And next best angle is 3 if you can't get it at your airport. Worst angles, as shallow as 2, as steep as 4. Okay, so we'll intercept the glide slope. Good chance that the needle will be above us as we're on approach. That's okay. Air traffic control told us to maintain our altitude. The needle will come down from the top and finally center. At that point, you'd probably be over the outer marker. Blue light's coming on, I can see. And that's the point in time when you want to actually get on the slide and ride the slide down the glide path. Okay, so continue down. So the outer marker, at this point, you're about 4 to 7 nautical miles out from the threshold of the runway. You're getting the blue marker light. You're also, if you have your audio turned on, you're getting the Morse code identifier. I think it's a Morse code identifier for the outer marker. Is it 2 dashes per second? And as you continue in, you're going to intercept the middle marker. I wish it wasn't yellow because it's kind of supposed to be amber, but it's more of an orangey color. And that means you're about 0.5 to 0.8 nautical miles out from the threshold of the runway, but you're only about 200 to 250 feet off the ground. And that's the point in time on approach that in a category 1 landing, you may decide to abort the landing and initiate a go-around procedure if you can't see, 800 meters in front as your runway visual range. But if you can, you're going to keep going. And the last marker is the inner marker. It's only about 250 feet off the end of the runway and only about 50 to 100 feet above the ground. And that would be a missed approach point for a category 2 landing. The inner marker, the white light, and its respective Morse code has been turned off for years here in North America. So there's a good chance that event won't take place on approach. Good. So there it is in all its glory. Okay, so whether your marker beacon unit is a separate unit outside of your audio controller or it's part of your audio controller, which is a pretty good idea considering there is marker audio, is neither here nor there. But officially, you got the outer marker first, or OM or O, middle marker, M or MM. Okay, and the inner marker, you can say I, you can say A for airways marker, you can say FM for fan marker or zone marker. It's all the same when it comes to the inner marker. Doesn't matter anyway, it's turned off. Good. Okay, any questions on that right there? Good. So what's this do? We use this piece of test equipment. What's it test? Hopefully it tested what we just went through. I'm pretty sure this particular piece of test equipment tests, that says LOC, localizer, glide slope, and if I'm not badly mistaken, you can check COM. So this piece of test equipment, which we did use, okay, checks COM and it checks nav. Okay, nav includes VOR and ILS. That's a COM nav test set. Okay, it's the IFR 401L. Now, if you're taking the third-year option in avionics, okay, they've been lucky enough to buy its replacement unit, which looks like this. Nice. Okay, this is an IFR 4000. Looking at it right now, it's in localizer mode on the frequency 108.1. Okay, so that's what people are using nowadays. Okay, so they used to use that, and they still do to some extent, but preferred now is an upgrade to these nicer units. Okay. What's this supposed to show me? What is that all about?
It's for your transponder.
Yeah, that's my transponder. So that facility is a transponder facility. It's air traffic control. Your transponder, is it a receiver, transceiver, or a transmitter? Your transponder in the aircraft.
Transceiver.
It's a transceiver. Does it is it a simplex transceiver or a duplex transceiver? Meaning, does it receive on the same frequency as it transmits on, or does it receive on different frequencies than it transmits?
Be a duplex. Yeah, two different ones.
Yeah. So it actually, your transponder actually receives interrogations on 1030 megahertz, okay, coming from air traffic control, and it replies back on 1090 megahertz. Okay, it's digital, it's pulse, and it's not. When it comes to this ground facility, this air traffic control radar beacon system, it's not the primary surveillance radar that's initiating the interrogations. It's the secondary surveillance radar antenna system that's riding sort of on top of the primary. That talks to all transponder-equipped aircraft in range. And when it comes to range, again, start thinking of all these systems as a range of about 200 nautical miles out, depending on altitude. Okay. The primary surveillance radar is to capture objects, aircraft, other objects that aren't sending any kind of data. It's to see it all on a single screen at air traffic control, a planned position indicator screen. Okay, so whether you're transponder equipped or not, we want to see everything on those sites. Okay, so I'm looking at this here. I already said the range is about 200 nautical miles out. When it comes to the game of transponder, who is the interrogator and who is the replier in the game? Okay, there's only two parties involved. It's either the aircraft or the ground station. So who's the interrogator?
Ground station.
Yep, ground station. Air traffic control interrogates. The aircraft responds. Hence, transponder replies. Okay. The interrogations, like I said, mode A is a request for code switch identification. I'm looking at the transponder in question above. It's squawking 0400. Again, that's not a decimal number, that's an octal number. And it's in ELT mode, so it's not only delivering back on its reply, it's not only delivering back the code switch ID, but it's also sending back altitude information. Okay. So I'm looking at the top unit here, the older unit, and then a sort of a newer unit on the bottom, digital. The upper transponder is in the on mode. So the only answers this transponder would give to air traffic control is the code switch setting, because it's only in the on position. It wouldn't give any altitude information. On the other hand, the bottom unit, the digital unit, is in the altitude position as far as the mode selector goes. So it would give both pieces of information. It would give the code switch identification, the 1200, and also the flight level. So 7,100 feet would be sent to air traffic control. Okay, so it always, air traffic control always interrogates, mode A followed by a mode C followed by a mode S interrogation. So if your aircraft is only in the on position, it'll only send back answers to mode A interrogation questions. However, if it's in the alt position, it'll send back not only the responses to the mode A interrogation question, which is code switch answers, it'll also send back pressure altitude reporting. And if you have a mode S transponder, it'll send back all of that stuff plus more as part of a mode S answer. Okay, the antennas for this system, because we're operating on 1030 and 1090 megahertz digital, aren't very big. Okay, we got the spike and we got the blade, and I would probably put those on the bottom of the aircraft if I had a mode AC transponder. And I try to get it as close as humanly possible to the center line of the aircraft should the aircraft bank. We don't want to shadow the signal. So doesn't matter, either one of those antennas would do, but the better one of the two is actually the sort of the fin, the little shark fin here, because the active element is protected by a candy coated covering of plastic, and that's always a good thing to protect your antennas from dirt. And in the case of the spike, the ball it seems to want to fall off after about a year or so. Okay, so let's go for a break and we'll pick up on this when you get back. For those people who haven't done the quiz, do the quiz.